He sits at the kitchen table at 6:40 a.m., retired for 9 months, staring at a portfolio app showing $1.28 million while a $418 dental bill waits beside his coffee. No office is expecting him, no manager is calling, no alarm is required, yet his chest tightens before he spends money that his own plan says he can afford. This is the retirement paradox. The job ended, but the old operating system stayed. Work once created the visible cage, but it also supplied the invisible structure: time, identity, permission, and a reason for every dollar. When that structure disappears, freedom can feel strangely unfinished. A person can leave the workplace and still live by its rules. The deeper question is not whether retirement has arrived. It is why freedom still feels out of reach. The system works like this. For most of adult life, work does more than provide income. It gives the day a frame. It tells a person when to wake up, when to leave the house, when to answer messages, when to stop for lunch, and when the week is allowed to end. From the outside, that frame can look like a cage. It limits time. It compresses personal choices. It turns Monday morning into a negotiation between fatigue and responsibility. But the same cage also creates order. It tells money when to arrive. It gives spending a rhythm. It makes weekends feel different from weekdays. It gives rest a reason. It gives identity a label. The retiree often expects the cage to disappear and freedom to appear in its place. But the system does not make that exchange automatically. When work ends, the visible pressure may leave first. The invisible structure leaves with it. The calendar opens. The paycheck changes shape. The title disappears. The old routines lose their authority. What remains is not always peace. Sometimes it is open space without instructions. This is where the retirement paradox begins. A person can be financially retired and still psychologically organized by work. The old operating system continues to run in the background. It says productivity is proof of value. It says money is safer when untouched. It says rest must be earned. It says a normal day needs a task list. These rules were useful inside a working life. They helped a person stay employed, pay the mortgage, build savings, and keep moving through pressure. But after retirement, the same rules can become confusing. The account balance may be large enough to support ordinary spending, but the mind still reads spending as risk. The calendar may be empty enough to allow freedom, but the body still feels uneasy without a deadline. The home may be quiet, but quiet can feel less like peace and more like a missing signal. The result is a strange form of captivity. It does not look dramatic. It looks like hesitation. It looks like checking the market before buying groceries. It looks like delaying a small trip because the portfolio dipped for 3 days. It looks like waking up early with nowhere to go, then feeling guilty for sitting too long. It looks like having time and still feeling behind. Money becomes part of the same system. During working years, money usually has a clear direction. Income comes in. Bills go out. Savings move upward. The goal is accumulation. The emotional rule is simple. Protect the pile. Retirement changes the financial direction. Money is no longer only moving toward the future. Some of it must move back into life. But the emotional rule often stays frozen. Protect the pile. Do not touch it. Wait for a safer moment. This is how a retiree can have assets without feeling access. The money exists, but permission does not. The system begins to resemble a full reservoir with a locked valve. The water is there. The land around it is dry, but opening the valve feels dangerous because the person spent decades measuring safety by how high the water rose. Time works the same way. Before retirement, time scarcity creates value. A free afternoon feels precious because most afternoons are not free. A vacation feels meaningful because it interrupts work. A slow morning feels earned because fast mornings were normal. After retirement, the contrast weakens. The week no longer pushes against the weekend. The day no longer pushes against the evening. Space expands, but meaning can contract. This does not mean free time is bad. It means free time without a frame can lose shape. It becomes like a house with all the interior walls removed. At first, it looks larger. Then it becomes harder to know where anything belongs. Identity follows the same pattern. A job title is never just a title. It tells other people where to place someone. It tells the person where to place himself. Engineer, nurse, manager, teacher, contractor, business owner. These words create a social shortcut. They explain why a person is busy, why they are tired, why they cannot attend every event, and why their time has value. Retirement removes the shortcut. The person may still be capable, experienced, and financially stable, but the daily proof disappears. There is no meeting to prepare for, no client waiting, no shift to complete, no team depending on an answer by noon. The role fades faster than the need to feel useful. That gap can create restlessness that looks like boredom but runs deeper. It is not only a lack of activity, it is a lack of organizing meaning. So the paradox continues. Retirement removes the job, but the person may still be governed by the job's habits, the saver's fear, the empty calendar, and the search for identity. The system does not fail because retirement is bad. It becomes unstable because one structure ended before another structure was fully formed. The result is simple and uncomfortable, retired but still not free. Now place two retirees side by side. They are not extremes. They are not cautionary tales. They are ordinary versions of the same retirement math. The first retiree is a 63-year-old former operations director. He leaves work with a paid-off home, $1.15 million across retirement accounts, and a modest cash reserve. His spreadsheet is not reckless. The numbers show that normal expenses can be covered. From a distance, his retirement looks clean. The job is over. The commute is gone. His calendar is open. The theory says this is where freedom begins. But his daily pattern tells a different story. Every morning, he opens the same portfolio app before breakfast. The number decides the tone of the day. If the balance is higher, he feels temporary relief. If the balance is lower, even slightly, he becomes quieter. A $64 dinner feels larger after a red market day. A weekend visit to see his brother becomes something to reconsider. The money is there, but the feeling of access moves up and down with the screen. Before retirement, the company controlled his time. After retirement, the account balance controls his permission. His cage did not disappear. It became less visible. The second retiree is also 63. She leaves work with a similar home situation and a similar retirement balance. Her finances are not dramatically different. She also notices market movement. She also understands that savings are finite. She also has ordinary expenses, insurance premiums, home repairs, and family obligations. But her week has a different shape. Certain mornings have a reason. Certain afternoons have a place. Some spending has a category. Some time is reserved for people. Some time is left open without guilt. Her life is not busier in a dramatic way. It is simply framed. The same money sits inside a different structure. That difference changes how the paradox appears. For the first retiree, retirement removed the job but did not replace the operating system. So the old rules kept running. Be productive, preserve capital, avoid mistakes, wait for certainty, stay useful. The problem is that certainty rarely arrives. Markets move, bills appear, health costs remain unknown, family needs shift. A person waiting for a completely safe moment may spend years waiting. For the second retiree, the absence of work did not become pure emptiness. The week still has edges. Money still has context. Identity still has outlets. The financial account is important, but it is not forced to answer every emotional question. This is the clean comparison. Same retirement label, similar financial resources, different lived experience. Before retirement, both people were supported by outside structure. Work created the calendar. Work supplied a title. Work gave them stories, frustrations, deadlines, and measurable progress. It also gave them an excuse to protect time. Being busy explained almost everything. After retirement, that explanation is removed. The first retiree experiences this removal as uncertainty. Without the workplace frame, he looks for another frame, and the portfolio becomes the easiest one. It updates daily. It gives numbers. It creates a sense of control. But it also turns life into a scoreboard. The second retiree experiences the same removal differently because the portfolio is not the only frame left standing. There are repeated places, repeated people, repeated purposes, and repeated rhythms. None of these cancel financial reality. They simply prevent financial reality from becoming the entire emotional weather system. Now compare the theory with the lived sequence. In theory, retirement removes pressure. In reality, pressure often changes location. It moves from the office into the kitchen table, from the meeting room into the portfolio app, from the work calendar into the blank week. The pressure becomes harder to name because there's no boss attached to it. Theory says retirement is a switch. Working, then free. Reality looks more like a transfer. Structure once came from the employer. After retirement, that structure either gets replaced or the old work-shaped rules remain in charge. This is why a person can have enough money and still hesitate. This is why a person can have free time and still feel behind. This is why a person can have no boss and still wake up as if being evaluated. The outside role changed faster than the internal rules. The paradox lives in that delay. Retired on paper. Still managed by the habits of a life built around work. The blind spot is that most retirement thinking begins with one question: can the job be left behind? That question is important, but it is not complete. It treats work as the only barrier between a person and freedom. So the mental picture becomes simple. Remove the job. Remove the pressure. Remove the commute. Gain the day. Remove the boss. Regain control. But that picture misses the structure hidden inside the thing being removed. Work was not only a source of pressure. It was also the system that organized time, identity, money, and permission. This is why retirement can feel confusing even when the financial plan looks reasonable. The person expected to step into freedom. Instead, they step into a space where the old rules still echo, but the old structure no longer explains them. You think the problem is the job, the early alarm, the full inbox, the deadlines, the meetings that could have been shorter, the years of giving the best hours of the day to someone else's schedule. And in one layer, that is true. Work does take space. Work does limit choice. Work does create fatigue. But the deeper issue is not only the presence of work. The deeper issue is what happens when work disappears, and nothing equally clear replaces its organizing role. A blank calendar is not automatically freedom. A large account balance is not automatically permission. A paid-off house is not automatically peace. A retired label is not automatically identity. These things create conditions. They do not automatically create a life that feels free from the inside. This is the shift. Retirement is not the absence of structure. Retirement is the transfer of structure. Before retirement, the structure comes from outside. After retirement, the structure has to come from somewhere else. Not necessarily from busyness. Not necessarily from constant activity. But from a frame that gives the day edges, gives money context, gives relationships breathing room, and gives identity somewhere to land. Without that frame, freedom can become too open to feel usable. It becomes like standing in a room with no walls, no doors, and no labels. Nothing is blocking movement, but nothing is defining direction either. The old model says retirement is the finish line. Cross it, and freedom begins. The more accurate model is different. Retirement is a change in operating systems. The work operating system shuts down. But unless a new one forms, the person may keep running on old code. That is why someone can be retired, financially stable, and still not feel free. The retirement paradox is that leaving work can remove the visible cage while leaving the invisible rules untouched. The commute can end, but the old clock can remain. The paycheck can stop, but the fear of touching savings can continue. The calendar can open, but the need for structure does not disappear. The title can fade, but the search for usefulness may stay. This is why retirement can look complete from the outside and still feel unfinished from the inside. The issue is not only whether a person has enough money to stop working. It is what organizes life when work no longer does. Freedom is not created only by removing pressure. It also depends on what gives time, money, identity, and relationships a new frame. No advice, just observation. This mechanism leads to a bigger issue we'll explore in the next video. Why some retirees become financially calmer after leaving work, while others become more anxious, even when their numbers look strong.